Well, the date is Saturday, September 20th, 2014.
Well, talk about when you were born. You were born 1940.
Yeah, it was a very sunny day in upstate New York. I was born on April 29th, 1940, and I was born in Walton, New York, W-A-L-T-O-N. I had an older sister named Eleanor. We call her Ellie. And she was 6.5 years older than me. So I think I was kind of an afterthought when I came along. My parents had a young son earlier, and he was stillborn, so he didn't make it. And then 6-7 years later they had my sister, and then 6 or 7 years later I came along. So I figure I was kind of lucky to sneak in, because as a result I was the baby of the family. And you know, I'd go visit all my relatives and cousins and everybody, and they were already basically grown up. And it was interesting to have to learn to get along with the older folk. But they just fawned over me, and especially the older people. They just loved having me. They wanted me to sit on their lap and pinch my cheeks and all that sort of thing. And I know how that goes. And now that I'm getting older, turns out I'm still a baby of the family, because almost everybody that was in my family is long gone. So that's not much fun to think about. Getting back to 1940, I was born to my mother and father, Ruth and Earl Monroe. My father worked for a farming operation called GLF, the Grange League Federation, which later became Agway. And he spent the rest of his career working with Agway, and quite a good business. But the family had 6 or 7 farms in our area, from Binghamton, Deposit, the Walton area, Delhi, Margaretville, a couple other towns in that area. So I spent a lot of time on the farms learning the operation, and during non-school times I would be over there working mainly with my Uncle Paul on his farm. And I was a cheap field hand, you know. They loved to use me because I knew what I was doing, and the product was milk. We had dairy farms. Most of the farmers had between 30 and 40 cows, and most of the farms were in the 300 to 400 acre category. So anything to do with farming, the majority of which was in upstate New York, revolved around the crops you grew and the animals you raised. And when I was a younger person, my Uncle Paul, and matter of fact all of the people, were pretty much horse farmers. My father was a horse farmer, and that means you had to use a team of horses to pull your wagons and all that stuff. My Uncle Paul did not get his first tractor until 1951. I was 11 years old by then, and I was working a lot for him. And we all wanted to get that tractor so I could get out there and drive it like the neighbors could. So we got an Alice Charmers, which is a row crop machine with the wheels in the middle, so that you could go down the rows of the crop and do your digging and whatnot and not disturb the plants. However, the tricycle tractor is not the safest on a hillside. For hillside farming, you need to have them spread out. So our next tractor was a Alice Chalmers with the wider wheels in front. And they were nice. I was a little disappointed because a neighbor down the road from us had a Ford. I liked the Ford, I really did. And I got to use that a bit when we were sharing time as we were haying, you know, mowing and raking the hay and then harvesting it. And so I got to drive the tractor and everybody else jumped on the back of the hay wagon and off we went. So we can talk more about the methods we used later on. Then we had to milk the cows in the morning. We'd get up about 4:30 in the morning. Now remember, I'm just a kid. Go down to the barn, feed the cows, get everything ready for the milking, get the milking machines out, and those are powered by electricity. It's like suction machines to suck the milk out of the cows, the udders, and you'd milk, and then after you got done milking, you know, you'd check the cow and okay, she's pretty much empty, and then you'd sit down with a pail on a stool and complete what they called stripping to make sure you got most of the milk out. And all that milk would be poured into a can. You've probably seen milk cans. They're about so high with a round top on them. And I became very good at rolling milk cans right down the concrete all the way to the milk house. And we didn't have refrigeration. We had cold water running through the milk house with a fairly good sized, it wasn't a pond, but you know, maybe 4 feet deep, and you'd take the milk cans and set it in the water, and that would cool it down. And so you'd do that morning and night, and then the next morning a milk truck would come and pick up our milk cans and go off to the creamery, and they'd exchange the cans for us. So we're constantly recycling the milk cans, and the place that picked up the milk would pick it up from us and blah blah. Sometimes I have trouble remembering exactly how we did that, but it was pretty cool. And those milk cans were heavy for a 10, 11-year-old kid. But boy, when you can roll them, I could roll those cans left, right, up, or down, and put them right where I wanted them. Things you learn. You have to feed the cows, got pitchforks and whatnot to throw some hay to them. You've got some place, one of the barns had like a venting system. You'd like pull a board and grain would come down into a pail, and then you shut the thing off and give each cow a portion of grain. And behind the cows is like a concrete dugout area, and that's where they poop. They would poop and pee in that, and guess who got to clean that out? Me. And I'd go down that thing with a shovel, and I'd have I'm trying to remember the name, a manure spreader, and just shovel it in, pee and all, and until you got to the end of the barn. It's a lot of work, and you might have to have a couple loads done. And you'd hook up the team of horses or the tractor to that thing and go out in the field, and it had a lever on it. You'd engage, and in the back you'd have spinners that would spin like this, and they'd just be flinging that stuff out on the ground. That's fertilizer. And go back in the barn, load it up again. You know, you keep moving ahead or to the side from where you were already working. So that worked pretty good. I didn't like all those jobs, but when you're young, you do what they tell you to. So we also had to clean the milkers, the milking machines, boil the milk and whatnot out of them, hot water, clean them out, make sure they were clean for the next milking. All kinds of things that are different from today. Today you got a milking station where cows come in and they just hook them up, and it's really, really different. The same with haying. You know, you go out with a mowing machine. The mowing machine has a blade that goes back and forth. So you're riding on it. It usually has a metal seat, and the wheels are usually metal. And the blade goes out on the right side, maybe 8 feet. It has a pitman arm which rotates the blade back and forth. And that's like a gear system from the wheels. So the horses or the tractor, as the case may be, would pull that mowing machine. I was more involved with the horses at that time, and off we'd go across the field, cutting that hay down. And after you've done it for a while, you'd have to check the blades and make sure they were sharp. That was another job. You take the blades out, put them in a vise, and use a file to sharpen them. I've had more than one of my fingers cut to the bone by skipping a beat and getting cut, because those blades were really sharp. I really knew how to do a sharp blade, but you have to remember to move your fingers out of the way. And it was more fun having the tractor, because the mowing machine was attached to the tractor, so there's, so to speak, less moving parts. If you have a horse, you got a team or 2 horses pulling your mowing machine, so you got a, you know, a hook going to the horses, and it's a little more complicated. Horse farming is interesting stuff. That's, I think the Amish still use that a lot. I mean, it works well, but it takes time and it's hard work. Well, so somebody asked me, well, what have you been up to all your life? And I have to tell them, well, been busy doing a lot of things. After I retired, most of my time is spent with the Boy Scouts. For your information, I was a young scout. I joined Cub Scouts in 1948, which makes me an old geezer. I was born on the 29th of April, 1940. And my name is Richard E. Monroe. I go by Dick. You can call me Dick. My mother called me Richard. So anyway, that's how that works. So I got into Cub Scouts in 1948. Went through that for a couple of years. Moved into Boy Scouts for a couple of years, maybe 3 years. I did not enjoy Boy Scouts that much. I guess it was kind of boring. The people that were running it weren't really good at camping and all that. But then in 1954, I joined Sea Scouts. Now that was really fun. We got to travel the waterways of upstate New York, go all the way up to the waterway that goes all the way along the Canadian border all the way to Buffalo. So we'd have a nice cruise going through the locks along the way. And once we got to Canada, we'd also have a ferry boat that took us over to Crystal Beach amusement park, and that was always a blast. So as far as scouting is concerned, it was Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Sea Scouts. But Sea Scouts really ruled where I was from, Ithaca, New York. And they did have what they called Explorer Scouts and Air Scouts. And everybody that I know knew that I was planning to fly later on in life. So everybody wondered why I went into Sea Scouts. Well, because I liked those guys. The Air Scouts were, it was further away to get way up to the airport, and the Sea Scouts was right down on the lake, so it just worked out that way. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. So after, I'm just going through this kind of fast to give you an idea. I graduated from high school in 1958, and I had planned to become a pilot, and a commercial pilot with a commercial license, and also an A&E ticket for mechanics on aircraft. And I signed up at Spartan School of Aeronautics in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I did that on my own without consulting my parents, who were very upset with me. I can't imagine why, but they said, look, you got a beautiful university up on the hill. Get up there and, you know, get into college and get a good job and blah, 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 you know. So I said, all right. I went up there and knocked on the door, got accepted into Airforce ROTC. Navy ROTC was already full, and the name of the college was a fairly nice school called Cornell University. Anyway, that was fun. Got into Cornell, spent 5 years there in the College of Engineering. I started out in engineering physics and then moved into agricultural engineering because there was a much better plan for people who are members of New York State that already lived in the state. So the school itself wasn't that much different. Engineering is engineering, no matter how you cut it. The agricultural side leaned more toward farming and farm equipment and building equipment, statics, and all sorts of things like that. And that's nice. And a lot of that requires physics, which I really enjoyed. So I did that for 5 years, and during that time I was busy with things outside of Cornell, and with the Air Force ROTC and another organization called Pershing Rifles. General George Pershing was a really big general back in the World War I days, and Pershing had a drill team, or they used Pershing's name for this drill team with rifles and all that stuff. And you know, we'd get all dressed up, our shoes looked like mirrors, our hat brims were shined. It was unbelievable. We were really high grade performers there, and we'd go all around the local area, New York City, Chicago, in competitions, and we did very well. So I learned a lot, and had fun doing that. You know, the whole time being an engineering student. And then the whole idea of going through ROTC, which is the Reserve Officers Training Program, is to get your commission as an officer, second lieutenant, and then go to Air Force base. If you're in the Navy, you go to a Navy base. Army, you go to an Army base. So Air Force, they send you to a base. I was qualified to become a pilot in the United States Air Force. So I was sent down to Craig Air Force Base in Alabama and spent 55 weeks down there learning to fly 2 different airplanes. One was the new Cessna T-37, a twin-engine jet plane, a training plane. And then 6 months later I got into the T-33, which was an older airplane, but that was a wonderful plane to fly. It was just, had more power, and it was a great cross-country airplane. We liked that. So after 55 weeks of training, I graduated, got my wings, and then my history in the Air Force really began, because I was sent to Stead Air Force Base in Nevada, where I trained in helicopters. Now you may ask, why helicopters? Well, because they didn't have an awful lot of other airplanes available. The main planes available were big airplanes like the B-52 and the B-47, and big planes that I did not want to fly. I wanted fighters, but unfortunately I was number 5 in the class and we only had 4 fighters available. So I took the helicopter so I could avoid going to SAC, which is Strategic Air Command. I did not want to go to SAC. So I took a helicopter assignment to avoid SAC and got an assignment to Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, in the brand new Huey. Yeah. So the Huey was the leading edge of helicopter technology in the early 60s. And this is, I'm talking 1964 when I got my assignment. And actually 1965 is when I started at Malmstrom. And as soon as I got to Malmstrom, since I was already rated in the T-33, I would go over to the Air Defense Command side of the field and fly missions with those guys once in a while, so I could fly the T-Bird, which I really enjoyed, dumping chaff and whatnot, which is basically a game of trying to find each other. The good guys would try to find me, you know, we'd dump this metallic material. It would show up on their radar and they'd try to find me, the airplane. And if you're a really good pilot doing this stuff, you dump your shaft and then take evasive maneuvers, and hopefully they'd go for the chaff and lose you. So that was a fun thing. Anyway, eventually I had to start training in the Huey, and that was a really fun thing. I was not happy to have to fly helicopters, but it kept me out of the bombers and the other old airplanes. And but interestingly enough, the helicopter I was flying was assigned to SAC, flying missile site support. So you know where all the missile sites are up in the northwest, and Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, and whatnot. And we would take people out to the missile sites every day. Some people would go out for a 24-hour shift or a 48-hour shift, and then the silos were spread around each launch control facility, and you'd have to take the mechanics out there from time to time to work on the missiles themselves. It was really good duty. And as a helicopter pilot and one that liked to hunt, I knew where all the deer and the antelope herds were. And on my days off, I'd jump in my car and go out and meet some of the ranchers in Montana and request permission to hunt on their land, which is just common sense. You know, you can't just go hunting on somebody's land without asking. And they were pretty reasonable. Of course, getting permission to hunt at all is a lottery system in Montana, so you apply for several different areas. But the thing of it is, if you get one and you've already talked to the rancher, you got a pretty good chance of getting in. So that's what I did. Never had a problem hunting pretty much where I wanted to. And I had a pretty good haul of antelope every year. I didn't have to buy meat because I had antelope, deer, and elk every year. The only meat we had to buy was bacon. So yeah, I was pretty lucky from that point of view.
Where'd you find him?
Okay, the deer above my head here, that was my very first deer, and I got him in New York State in 1956 over on my Uncle Paul's farm. And I had a fellow Sea Scout with me. We were both hunting, and son of a gun, I got the deer. I had borrowed my father's car, and he was driving my Volkswagen at the time, my father, so that I could drive the big Chrysler. And I told him I was going to bring a deer back, and I did. But the problem was I was supposed to go to a funeral to one of our closest relatives, and you know, the poor guy died during hunting season, and they had the funeral, and I had the deer, so I really caught the dickens for not showing up at the funeral. Instead, I was dressing out the deer, threw it over the fender of the car, took it home, hung it up in the garage, and when my mom and dad got home, they saw the deer hanging up and certainly let me know how sad they were that I missed the funeral. And I, to myself, was thinking how happy I was to have the deer. Matter of fact, I had some moccasins made out of the skin, and it was pretty cool. Very nice. You pretty much earn those for putting in your time during a period of war, and you know, over a period of time you can earn more than one air medal. As I said, I've got 8 through number 7 there. And then the center, the Air Force Commendation Medal, was something I got as a result of a U.S. Army helicopter that got shot down, and I just happened to be in the area when they were hollering for help, and we went over there and rescued all the people on that helicopter, and so I got the Air Force Commendation Medal for that. That was in December 1967. And sometimes our helicopters, which looked like that one on the right, and then the one on the left shows you some of the firepower we had. I love that picture. We were flying along getting shot at, and I said, hell. I gave the airplane to the co-pilot, and I said, I gotta crawl back there and get a picture. So I crawled over the seats and put my camera up, and they were shooting the minigun here. There's two speeds on that gun, 2,000 and 4,000 rounds a minute. This was at 4,000 rounds a minute, and every fifth round is a tracer. And getting that plume like that was just so cool. And of course back then you never knew what kind of a picture you took because you didn't have instant photographs like we have today. You'd take the pictures and be lucky to get them back after 3 or 4 weeks. You have to send them off, and I don't know where they sent them, but to Philippines or somewhere, and then you get your pictures back, and if you were lucky you got a really good shot like that one there. And then other medals were earned. If you move up, the Distinguished Flying Cross here, that was 22 August 1967 for the Distinguished Flying Cross is for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight. And sometimes extraordinary achievement means you're keeping the airplane flying when you're getting shot at, which is interesting in itself. So I got one there, and then another one over here for 22 October. I can't read that. Oops, sorry. October 67. Okay, so I got one in August of 67 and another one in October 1967. And I've got the write-ups. We could look at them later on. Well, we'd have to go through them because I cannot remember all the medals I was getting and whatnot. So, but I do remember vividly the center medal, which is the Silver Star. Not too many people receive that. I consider myself fortunate to be one of the people that received the Silver Star, and that's for gallantry in action. That was in August 1967. As you can see, 1967 was a busy time for us, and the type of stuff we did was to put six-man teams in the field to gather intelligence and whatnot from the bad guys. And this is working in the tri-border area, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, in that area. And most of the time you'd put a team in, and within a few days they'd be getting in trouble, hollering for help, and we have to go pull them out. The way that worked, if you put them in, you had to pull them out. So these guys really had a reputation for getting in trouble, so I wasn't happy when I got called to go pull them out. And it was starting to get dark, and you're going down toward the trees. There's ground fire. I got a sky raider dropping napalm in the area. I'll explain that later and show you what a sky raider looks like. Anyway, they dropped their bombs, and then we set up our approach into the area with a helicopter. And it was getting really dark, and by dark I mean you could barely make out the trees. And you get into the area and throw out rope ladders on both sides of the airplane. It's kind of a hillside, so you had to be careful that the rotor blade didn't hit the hill. I mean, you'd be ticking the weeds on the right side, for example, and guys climbing up the ladder, and of course that would make the helicopter move back and forth a little bit. That was scary. Yeah. Anyway, we got everybody on, and we're getting shot at. I mean, it's like incoming practically the whole time we were there. And then we got them on, pull the power in, take off. going straight ahead as we could remember. It was pretty clear, but doggone, a tree got in the way of the helicopter. And the first thing it did was tore off the gun mount on the right side, so we lost a gun, and the rotor blades hit that tree and just chopped it right off. And the second blade came around and hit it, so that really screwed up the aerodynamics of the rotor blade. So it was kind of like on a real bumpy road. The helicopter was shaking like you wouldn't believe, because the airfoil had been ruined. It hit the leading edge of the blade, caved it in about 2 inches or so, and the bonding for the blade all the way out to the tip was opened up, so that's not good. But we were still flying. So if you're still flying, you don't want to stick around and talk to the bad guys, so you just keep on going. And I told everybody we were in trouble, and the gunships and everybody else were keeping a close watch on us, and we had to go to a place called Docto, which I think was about 60 or 70 miles away. And we were shaking so hard we could not go fast. So we were probably cruising at about 25 miles an hour, going over to Docto, and that was a scary night. And we got there, everybody survived, landed a helicopter, and everybody got out and kissed the ground. And I couldn't buy a drink after that for a long time. So, and as a result of that mission, I met a friend of mine who flew Sky Raiders. I saw him maybe a month after this happened, and we're talking, and come to find out he was one of the guys dropping napalm on my position. So I had not seen him since ROTC days, so it was pretty nice having a get together with him. Well, I got a nickname over in Vietnam. In addition to being a line pilot, I was also the chief test pilot. So I was flying a lot of missions to make sure the airplane was airworthy for combat. So I spent a lot of time in the air. Maybe I was a little slow once in a while when people talked to me, and they gave me a nickname of Lurch. And if you're from the old days, you remember Lurch was the guy from the Addams Family. Or maybe it's the way I talked. You called, or you rang. But I don't know, just they gave that name to me and it stuck. So the only time I hear that anymore is if I go to an Air Force reunion. That's pretty cool. Not too many people have a nickname like that. I'll talk about Mountain Meadows, this portion, just for the hell of it, you know. When I was commuting to San Francisco, my wife was becoming very active in real estate, and during her tour of duty, she found this bunch of properties out in Duval. It was like, let's see, 7 20-acre parcels altogether, owned by a logging company. She made fun with the loggers, made friends, and as a result we purchased 60 acres, which were 3 different 20-acre parcels out in Duval, which is out in the boondocks, but it's only 3 miles from town. One of those parcels, you get down a hill, and it's a beautiful area now. We've turned it into a park-like setting that the Boy Scouts can go down and camp out. We've got a pond down there we stock with rainbow trout, and the adjoining property, which is owned by the neighbor that lives on top of the hill, allows us to use his 20, and he's also got a pond stocked with fish. So we've got 40 acres where the boys can do their training, camping, and just about anything they want to do down there, including having big fires, because you know how kids like fire. And it's worked out, well, I guess since 1988. And my son Miguel grew up down there. He was with the Boy Scouts, and he's an Eagle Scout. But his patrol took over an area in what we call the outback, and they had their own fire pit and camping area, and they used hammocks quite a bit. And as a result, we've had some really good times down there. Years ago, we used to have Christmas parties down there where every boy would bring a $5 gift, and we had some battery-operated Christmas lights on the shrubbery, and we'd light a fire and have fun and pass out the presents, and that was fine. Also, the merit badge weekends we have down there are really busy. A couple of years ago we had about 240 kids down there, which is a lot for a 20-acre parcel. The parking lot was full. But everything worked out fine. And with the advent of these new drones, Miguel's been able to take some photograph documentaries, so to speak, of what we were doing down there, and go up to high altitude and take pictures of all the tents and whatnot, and all the activities. That's fun. But that's what keeps me busy quite a bit of the time. I'm out there a lot, and as a result I have a messy office at home. I like to be outside. I like to be visiting with the people that go out there, and it's just a good time. So if you have never been out there, I would invite you to come on out and take a look. So that's about all I got to say about Mountain Meadows. It's Paradise West. This is really scary. Miguel thought it would be nice if I said a few words, in that I'm scared halfway to death as it is. This is probably small stuff, but it's not small to me because I've never had it happen before, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm scared. I don't like it. But if you get to see this, it probably means I didn't make it. So to you, hope you have a great life, and it's been fun knowing you. I've had a tremendous amount of support from the people I've worked with over the years, most specifically flying for the U.S. Air Force, flying for United Airlines, and all the people that make those operations work. So the biggest problem with that type of job is being gone so much from the family. So as a family guy, I probably fall short in that I have not been able to spend as much time with my wife and kids that I would normally be doing on an 8-to-5 job. This is one of the things that happens when you're gone a lot, and I apologize for that, but I have to really take my hat off to Tony and my kids for hanging in there with me all these years. And
Daddy, wake me up.
Go see Grandpa.
No, wake me up. Grandma, wake me up. Grandma,
hey,
see.
how are you? Look at the camera. Look at the camera and say hi.
I.
This is Aubrey. She's the youngest grandchild. I've got 11 grandchildren now.
No.
And I understand we have another one on the way. So I'll be up to a baker's dozen. And this is my little doggie, Esther. She just got over having a broken leg, so she's doing pretty good. She actually smells pretty good. We had her teeth cleaned. And anyway, Aubrey came over to see me today.
Wake me up, Grandma.
She's going to run upstairs and see Grandma. So anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody for all the support I've had over the years. It's been a wonderful friendship with you and great knowing you. And I never was one to get all mushy about things. I'm not going to cry for you or anything like that. I'm going to face this thing head on and we're going to beat it. And once I get my breath back, I'll be out there running a marathon and we'll hopefully lose 50 pounds and I'll look really cool. So if you have any questions, you can call my son, Miguel, who'll probably be handling the communication end of it. And if you don't know his phone number, that's your problem. You can always call, you can call me, but I'm not going to answer the phone if I'm gone. And to go without talking to anybody, that's amazing. Because we have an awful lot of texting and whatnot, emails going on with all the work I do with the Boy Scouts. We've got over 2,500 Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts in the North Lakes District, and I keep up with as many of them as I can, which is a full-time job for somebody who's retired. But I love it. And well, I better cut this off or I don't want you to fall asleep during my speech. So y'all take care, stay healthy, pay attention to what your body's telling you. The problem is, when you get older, eventually something's going to happen. So do your best to stay healthy, and at least when you go, they'll look at you in your coffin and say, well, he sure looked good, or whatever. But I think I'm going to go through the crematorium, and I told my son-in-law Howard that I was going to have my ashes spread over his vineyards at the winery. So we'll see if that works or not. So talk to you later.
He probably doesn't want sour wine.
Yeah, right.